I take no pleasure in this one. Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well. And I suspect you're asking yourselves, why is he saying that? Why is he saying why he takes no pleasure in this? It is because I have to mention a video that was put out by Richard Inman today that I cannot, in good faith, keep quiet about. I don't like going after people on our side of the spectrum. It makes me neither happy or pleased whatsoever to have to call something like this out, because we should all be on the same side. But as I said, I cannot in good faith, after watching Richard Inman's video, stay silent on this matter. There aren't going to be some outside sources on this. This is purely based off of what I've seen and what I've read. But today he made a video basically outlining what civil war would look like. Which, you know what? He's not factually incorrect on it. Far from it. I'd say he's probably hit it on the head as far as how much of a disaster it would be. I mean, think about it. People from different cultures, religions, societies coming out onto the street and fighting one another. It's not my idea of living in Britain, and it's not something I would ever condone or justify. But after I listened to his, 18 minute video, I had time to process it. Think of a number of different situations, think of a number of different reasons why this would be made. But what baffles me is at about the halfway point, maybe a bit over, Richard Inman highlights what the government should be doing as far as raising like an army is concerned, or raising a force basically to combat any civil war that goes on. Now, as I said, he doesn't want civil war. I'm pretty sure Paul Thorpe or Martuzzi or Tommy Robinson don't want civil war. I don't want civil war, quite frankly. But there are so many things that I have said regarding this. Basically, hoodlum's getting in the way. Basically, we may not want something, or we may actually want something. But the cold, bitter truth is, sometimes it comes down to not a matter of if, but a matter of when. And for too long, we have seen the devastating effects of what importing the third world into our country has done. Letting veterans die on the streets while illegal immigrants are being housed in 3 to 5 star hotels. And a two-tier policing and justice society that makes us all look like a laughingstock while persecuting innocent people. Then, of course, there's the death cult that is Islam, that is actively trying to turn our country into a third world shithole. We have so much going on right now that has basically fanned the flames or fueled the fire that is basically waging in Britain. Waging? No, that's not the right word. Raging, I think, is what I meant to say. But my point is, there's a lot of stuff going on right now that endangers this country. And here Richard Inman is basically handing out plans on how to deal with a revolution, how to deal with civil war. Maybe there is some stroke number one, some benevolent reason behind it. But I'm not seeing it, quite frankly. Way I look at it, he may as well hand out plans of what we're going to do next. Because as I said, it's not a matter of if anymore. It's a matter of when. We can't pussyfoot around this anymore. We can't sit here anymore and be like, we don't want this to happen. It is going to happen. That's the cold, bitter truth, Richard Inman. This goes directly to you. You don't want an uprising. You don't want revolution. You don't want civil war. I get it. And it's an admirable position to take. However, you can't go and give the establishment the means of how they can basically stop it. You giving them these ideas is only arming the enemy. It is not doing anything for us. Remember, governments should fear their people, not the other way round. We are the ones that should be in charge of this shit, not them. And I don't think you're a bad man, Richard. I just think you have got this one completely wrong. Let me put it another way for you. If you know that your own Irish or British troops, whichever you want to use, are about to go and attack the enemy, you're not then going to make a video saying to the enemy, this is what they're going to do, and this is how you can beat them. No! You'd be immediately called a traitor. And you know what they did to traitors in World War II? Hell, you already know what they'd love to do to Tony the War Criminal Blair and Keir the traitor Starmer. So why would you go out of your way to tell them how to deal with this uprising? And I'll be clear. As I said, I don't want this violent revolution. I don't want this civil war. But as I said, it's going to happen. You know the old saying, the road to hell is often paved with good intentions? You should know that. And I know you're not going to like me saying that. But, as I said, it's the cold, bitter truth. This is the very definition of why I take absolutely no pleasure in calling this out. If it was some left-wing NPCs that were basically larping on about, oh, we should incite violence and terrorism and all that, then yeah, maybe I'd take pleasure in roasting them over a Spitfire. Just don't ask me to add any peas to that roast, because I don't like them. Anyway, I don't like having to call out points on my own side. As I said, we should all be on the same team. At this point, Richard Inman, this is me saying it point blank. This particular point of you mentioning what the government needs to do about this is at best suspicious, and at worst, it could be seen as treachery. It could be seen as colluding with the government. And I'm sure you're not a guy who wants to basically snuggle up to Keir the traitor Starmer, are you? I can't think of one decent man that would want to do that, let alone probably one of the most patriotic people who's not even from this country. I know all of the good stuff you've done, Richard, but as I said, I cannot, in good faith, keep quiet about this issue. I know you also talked about some points, and I will agree with some of these points. Some of the points you made include the fact that, obviously, we have criminal gangs, we have Islam, we have all manners of different kinds of people who operate on the wrong side of the law, who have access to firearms, or at bare minimum, bladed weapons. I 100% agree with that shit. And all the vast majority of these laws have done is basically protect the criminals, rather than the innocent. It reminds me of one of the old videos that I did, where I talked about Idris Elba, who basically said, maybe we should blunt the knives. And I basically counter that, saying that even a blunt knife can kill someone, it'll just take a bit longer, or someone stronger, that's all. Likewise, the guns don't kill people, it is the people behind them. So, you can imagine what criminals are going to do with those guns, or Islam is going to do with those guns. So as far as that point's concerned, I 100% agree with Richard Inman. But when you have a plan going for you, when you have, I guess lacking a better way of putting it, a preferred method of attack, you aren't going to stand up on the parapet and yell it out to your enemies, this is how we're going to defeat you. But to play devil's advocate to my own little argument, I can understand why he's done it, because, as I said, he doesn't want this. He doesn't want this war, I don't want this war. I've already said it's going to happen. I've already said that enough. But basically, he's doing it to show our corrupt establishment that he's trying to operate in good faith. And he's trying to show them, this is how you deal with a situation like this if it arises. I get it. I can completely understand it. I'm not acting out on impulse. I've had half the bloody day to think this over, quite frankly. And this is how I've come to these conclusions. The way I slice it, as I said, mentioning this shit to the government is at best suspicious and at worst tantamount to treason. And I suspect there's going to be a lot of people who don't like what I've just said, who won't like the fact that I am basically calling out what Richard Inman has said. And I suspect I may even lose a whole bunch of subscribers for this. And I'm not just talking about a handful. I'm probably talking maybe 100 or so, if not more. But the way I slice it is, whether it's left or right, I'm going to call it out if it's wrong. And the way I look at it, I don't think it was right for Richard Inman to showcase what to do if you're the establishment and you've got the fear of a civil war coming up. We are heading towards that war. Let's face it. There is no shot that we are not going to have a civil war in the very near future, quite frankly. I don't see us going down the line 5 years later it happens. You'll be lucky if you have 1 year before civil war comes, let alone 5. But like I said, I cannot, in good faith, keep quiet about what you've mentioned to the government, Richard Inman. I cannot, and I will not. Principles. There comes a time and a place where we have to accept reality. You can't keep living in the land of fantasy. Even though I do that almost every day with my video games. Anyway, you can't live in the world of fantasy forever. One day, you're going to have to step out into the real world, and you're going to have to accept that there are things that are going to happen that you don't like, that I don't like, that every person on this planet does not like. And you will not find one other person who is a more avid believer of not wanting civil war than me. What we need to be doing is making sure we don't have the means to defend ourselves taken away from us. Because that is what the government will do. They've already taken away our guns. What do you think's going to be next? This government took away our guns specifically because they knew full well what a nation with guns can do. Take a look at America. America, oh, hello again. America has to sleep with one eye open because of the number of people who have the right to bear arms. No, I'm not talking about a bloody Ursula comes along and starts shooting a gun. No, they have the right to bear firearms. And because of that, the government can't just lock everyone down. They can't just decide, oh, we're going to go full dictatorship, because the whole population, or at least a good portion of it, will rebel. Just like that. That's why they took the guns away from us here in the UK. And the only people it hurts is the indigenous population. Criminals don't give a shit if we've put up some of the strictest firearm laws in the UK. Because at the end of the day, they're always going to go out and try to get these things, regardless of whether it's legal or not. The establishment have done that specifically to make its own people, who it's supposed to protect and serve, more and more vulnerable. But of course, the mainstream media won't tell you this. You know the drill, folks, because say it with me. It doesn't suit the narrative. What better kind of populace than one that can't defend itself? Think of Animal Farm, where the animals can't defend themselves. What if predators come along and start deciding they want to rip them a new arsehole? What happens, do you think? No, that's not a fan, actually. That's someone just beeping. But what happens, basically, when you have a situation where your people can't defend themselves? And you've got an establishment that is coming down on you hard, that wants to press the thumb down, as it were, and wants to have full total control over you, wants to overrule the will of the British people. And here you are, Richard Inman, who I would have expected more from you. I would have expected you to at least use the common sense you clearly have, even if most others do not, to see that saying what you said only helps the establishment. I don't want to be going after you, Richard Inman, because I know who our real enemies are. Our enemies are sitting in the houses of treachery. I mean Parliament. Or maybe I was right first time. Our enemies lie in 10 Downing Street. The so-called politicians. Well, they're politicians, all right. Career politicians. Wankers of the highest order. They have engaged wholeheartedly in the art of wankery and treachery and dishonesty. Some people, even in your own damn video, Richard Inman, are saying, and they'll say it in mine as well, they are saying the Civil War needs to happen. Maybe they're right. Maybe it does need to happen. I hope it's not the case. I don't want to believe that's the case. But again, cold bitter truth, Richard. It may need to happen for this country to wake up. It may be necessary to hit that alarm clock that is waking up the whole population, if it would only work. For all we know, because there have been speculative rumours going around. I am going to get rid of Hoodlum in a minute. Anyway, there are speculative rumours going around that apparently these migrants that are being housed in hotels are even having crates of weaponry given to them. Whether it's machetes or guns and what have you, I do not know. And as said, it's speculation, so take it with a grain of salt, if you will. And ask yourself this, Richard Inman. When your enemies are charging out from no man's land, charging your position with the intent to kill, do you think praying, do you think sitting around and hoping civil war doesn't come along, do you think that's going to help? At the end of the day, there are fighting age men all over this country, whether it's in hotels, whether it's hiding in plain sight, whether it's basically hiding in the shadows. There are fighting age military-esque people and terrorists and scumbags of every kind, mainly of that so-called religion of peace, that are ready to spill our guts on our own land. You cannot expect peace to work with people who are not even afraid of death. They embrace it. Islam will do everything they can to subjugate and conquer every country in this world. Whether it's in the Middle East, whether it's in the West, whether it's in South Africa, or whether it's up in the bloody Antarctic. The way I slice it is you cannot expect civil war not to happen anymore, or to try and prevent it, because it is going to happen, whether you like it or not. Right now, the army here in Britain, it doesn't even go to 100,000. And Keir the traitor Starmer, as we know, is trying to send 10 to 30,000 off to Ukraine. Think about it. Not even 100,000 in our own damn army. And then we take a look at our police force, who have about as much strength as a single shot of malt, quite frankly. Right now, our government, and of course the enemies of our country, do not outnumber us. But if we wait 5 years, Islam's population will explode, just like that. And then stroke number 2, then we really will have a problem, because we won't have the numbers advantage anymore. You may not like what I'm saying, Richard Inman, and I'm sure there are a lot of other people who will not like what I'm saying. But the truth is, within the next few months, that would be the best time for it to happen. I don't want it, of course. Nobody does. But if it were to happen, it needs to happen sooner rather than later. Because we all know that Islam has been categorically proven to say the greatest weapon that they have right now is the woman's womb. They are breeding like rabbits. They are trying to outbreed us. That way, they will make birth to many other jihadist warriors that will eventually overwhelm us with sheer numbers. And what do you think, talking about what the government should do to quell a revolution, what do you think that's going to do?
Nothing. You know why? Because Islam will overwhelm the government. It does not give me any pleasure to attack people on the right side. It does not, and I don't want to be doing it. But we have to get real. We have to grow up, and we have to bring ourselves back into the real world. Do you think our founding fathers and our forefathers, who fought 2 world wars and died for this country, gave their lives so we could whimper in the corner like a coward? Do you think they gave their lives to pander to woke ideologues and to pander to a death cult religion that's only objective is to subjugate the world and put it under a global caliphate? If they could see this right now, they wouldn't just be turning in their graves, they'd be starting the Olympics in there, quite frankly. We have to wake up. Get real. We cannot sit idly by anymore. We have to prepare for the worst. And as I said, that does not give me any pleasure to say that shit. But it's something we all have to do now. It's the cold, bitter truth. Because do you think they're going to care that we're trying to be peaceful? Do you think Islam is going to care that we're trying to allow them into our society when they clearly believe that their ideology is superior and that they must kill all the kafir, the kafar, the kafuffle, whatever you want to call them? They treat women as second-class citizens, and they want to give homosexuals a free first-class ticket off the top of a high-story building, or stone them to death. Do you think that life would be better under that? I don't. And I don't think we should be waiting on this. If we don't take the initiative, they will. And then we will be dead. It's like when Paul Fort was grimacing at the mere idea of me calling Keir the traitor Starmer the leader of the Nonce Party. Sorry, Labour Party. Or again, maybe I was right first time. There are people who may not like the truth, or may not like how bluntly I put it. Doesn't change it from being correct though. And maybe I've got some things wrong in the past, but I know for a fact that Islam is categorically trying to take over this country. I mean, they already have a Muslim Council of Britain. We already have people going out of their way to use the term Islamophobia to stop the investigation of grooming gangs for fear of being called racist, even though you can't be racist against a religion. But again, that's something the mainstream media don't want to tell you. And Keir the traitor Starmer certainly won't. They are using every dirty, unscrupulous tactic and trick in the book to try and subjugate the indigenous population. And we know how Islam loves to operate. They operate as a hive mind. Though I will be devil's advocate again and say the one thing they have, as do the left, the one thing they have over us is they're far more organised. Far more organised, far more capable of getting an army down somewhere in a blink of an eye. That's the one thing they do have over us. But we need to start basically being as organised as they are. If we don't, maybe those people who left the country were right to leave. If we can't organise ourselves, if we can't have faith in ourselves, how are we supposed to expect other people to? And all this, of course, there's a reason I never signed the pledge. There was a reason I did not sign that damn thing. And it was simply because I did not want to tunnel vision myself into a contract which would basically force my hand. I want flexibility, even though I'm built like a geriatric hippopotamus. I want flexibility. And I can't do that if I put a signature on a contract that basically forces me to conduct myself in a certain way. No one is going to tell me what I can and can't do. And I hate to say it, but what this has done, this situation with Richard Inman, how he's basically giving the government basically a complete battle plan on how to deal with an uprising, is he is effectively weakening this whole movement. Oh sure, he pushes peace, which is all well and dandy, but as I said before, there comes a time where jaw has to give way for more war. Because what do you think talking to an enemy that is intent to kill is going to do? You're going to look stupid as you lay there laying in a pool of your own blood, put simply and bluntly. Now the point I made as well at the beginning of the video is I completely understand some of why he's done it. Nobody here wants a civil war. Nobody wants to see thousands, tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of people lying in the streets dying or dead because of a civil war. Believe you me, I can completely understand it. But as I said, comes a time, jaw will eventually give way for war. I think that far-left socialist who started World War II when he invaded Poland is a very clear example of that. And Islam is just another ideology that cannot be reasoned with. It's sad to think that we live in a government and a time where the mainstream media and some NPCs will go out of their way to say, oh, we need to do everything they can to combat white supremacy. However, yeah, there is some white supremacy in some people, I get that. Well, it ain't here in me, let me tell you. Because people of all walks of life should be able to get along with one another. I don't believe white people are superior, far from it. I think there's a lot that we need to look at ourselves. But we can't sit here and constantly slag white British people off just because of their colour. It's funny how they're willing to do that and then they say, oh, it's not racist if it's against white people. But the moment it's anybody else, double standards, basically. I know I kind of look like basically the picture, the icon of far-right, bald-headed, violent thug and all that. But I assure you, I am absolutely not that. I am not far-right. I've usually been right so far. I usually like to think that I can tell the truth in most cases. But if I do muck it up, I'm the first person to put their hands up for it. And they're pretty big hands. But we are dealing with an intolerant religion, an intolerant death cult that literally wants to rule the world. And it justifies violence, it justifies sexual acts, it justifies taking women as sex slaves, it justifies basically the killing of dogs because they believe them. That's another thing. The reason that Islam doesn't like dogs is they believe that they corrupt their prayers. They basically cancel out the effects of the prayer. Which is why when I saw the story that there was a group of people who threw a dog out of a high-story building to its death, my alarm bells went off. Now, to play devil's advocate to that again, that could have been a group of white people for all I know, but I don't see any details of it. So, obviously, people, because they are judgmental, they are going to jump to, well, the usual suspects. Thank you. The way I look at it is we cannot keep acting on the sidelines. We have to take action. Why do you think I made that petition regarding Keir the Traitor Starmer? Why do you think I made that petition for Tommy Robinson? Now, quite frankly, the way I look at it, the safety of Tommy Robinson should be all of our priorities. I don't want to be going at somebody else's throat because of what they say. But as I said throughout this video, I cannot in good faith ignore what was said by Richard Inman as far as giving the government the rundown on how to basically deal with a civil war, because you are effectively throwing away secrets or battle plans or whatever on how to deal with it. You are effectively weakening
what could happen. Now, of course, as I said, we don't want war. Can't stress that enough. But it is going to happen. And that is why I willingly said that Richard Inman's actions here, with that point specifically, are at best suspicious and at worst tantamount to treason. And all it does, quite frankly, is it proves to me that I made the right decision not to sign the pledge. Of course, if I've got it wrong, please let me know. And I will happily have this debate. I will happily debate Richard Inman on this, because it is a very, very important subject. Because the way I slice it is we can't sit idly by while our country is being fed to the dogs. I've always put my email in every video I've put up. I was a little late this morning with the most recent two, as the most recent one, I was uploading it when I was trying to sleep because I'd actually went swimming. Yeah, that's something I'm doing now. Every Wednesday I've been, well, it's only the second time, but I've been going out swimming. Just do something, get me active, get me socialising and what have you. And hell, I even put on one hell of a show the first time round where I nearly drowned. Oh, I was doing high kicks and everything. I was being my own fucking personal Jackie Chan, fat Jackie Chan in a swimming pool. Oh God, it was hilarious, but it was also the most embarrassing moment for a long time in my life, I'd say. But moving away from the trivial stuff, the menial stuff, the mundane stuff, the bottom line in this is, I will speak out if I think left or right is wrong. If I feel that Richard Inman, which I do, has made a huge mistake, then I'm going to call him out on it. And I will mention and put my points forward as to why I think he's fundamentally wrong with what he's done. Having debate is healthy. Having debate means that you're able to advance yourself as a civilization, as a species, and even as a human being. That's the way I look at it. The swamp does need to be drained eventually. I don't expect everyone to fully agree with what I'm saying. Let me make that absolutely clear. I don't expect everyone to appreciate what I'm trying to say. But here's the thing. What's going on right now is shaking the very foundations, not just of his movement, not just of this country, but the entire Western civilization. That's the way to look at it. We are being watched immeasurably. The two-tier policing, the two-tier justice, the treachery of Keir the Traitor Starmer, the political imprisonment and persecution of Tommy Robinson, the constant tax hikes, the abuse against the elderly, the MPs getting away with assaulting their own constituents and getting nothing more than a suspended fucking sentence. They don't look at us as a strong nation anymore. They look at us as a laughingstock. And other countries, they treat us like a dumping ground. They are more than willing to dump the third world onto us, because we've taken in more illegals and legal immigrants than any other country in this world. And Saudi Arabia, as a prime example, hasn't taken any. Why? Well, here's another example. Egypt didn't want to take in some of these people who are of the same religion. Do you know why? Do you know why? Because they know what they were going to do. They know full well those guys were terrorists and people who would threaten their society. So why should we be the dumping ground of everyone else? Richard Inman, the gloves are off. No, really, I'm taking them off. Anyway, the gloves are coming off, metaphorically and literally speaking. If you want to debate about this, my email will be in the description, as it's always been. Let's have a debate about this. Because this is a serious issue now. I cannot, in good faith, stay silent on this. I cannot sit here while you are basically giving away
to the establishment, no less, a treacherous, sectarianist establishment, basically the keys to deal with any potential uprising. As I've said, I don't want an uprising or a revolution or civil war myself. But there are some things you just don't do. And one of those things is you don't sell out another country.